So, the hospitality industry in India, like many other industries, is closed and inward focused. Leaders typically work their way up into the ranks, into managerial roles. Rarely would you find a non industry professional being welcomed into leadership. The mindset is often if you haven't spent 20 years in this industry, you don't understand it. This creates a bubble where people know the industry inside out, but sometimes resist ideas that come from the outside. Often it's a combination of both internal and external talent not being keen to work with each other. When industry is so inward focused, it ends up being relying on legacy ways of working and practices. Now, don't get me wrong, the industry does adopt the latest designs, culinary innovations, and F&B concepts. You have to innovate to survive. But when it comes to how we treat people, how we manage culture, and how we embrace new work practices, change comes slowly. Innovation becomes selective. We bring in new menus, new rooms, new lobbies, but we hesitate when it comes to innovating people practices. Yes, all major players in India have introduced the latest HRIS information systems. But when it comes to people practices, many still prefer to maintain the status quo. So, what exactly is the status quo and how do you detect it? Lisa Bodil, she mentions in her book Kill the Company. When how do you detect status quo? When you present an idea, there is no reaction. What follows is a deluge of excuses and for the why the idea would not work. In one of the chapters, she refers to how once several years ago at General Motors, the CEO tried to stamp out bureaucracy and ended up appointing a committee to actually oversee how many committee meetings are being held. That's the status quo in action. Change is talked about, but it is not acted upon. Glenn Lupus, in his book, The Innovation Mentality, talks about status quo. He points out that leaders today, everywhere, are struggling to adapt to the changing world. They are relying on old templates that don't work anymore. The status quo isn't working anymore. The leaders need to change in order to stay relevant. When organizations cling to the status quo, they miss the warning signs. They ignore feedback. They silence new voices. They dismiss discomfort. Doing nothing is in effect, allowing failure by default. I took over HR role in the midst of the COVID pandemic. Hospitality was hit hard. We were already suffering from high attrition levels. COVID only magnified the cracks. People were exhausted, demotivated. Many left the industry altogether. As part of my role, I spent time visiting hotels and engaging with the Gen Z employees to understand their aspirations. One conversation in Bangalore still stands out vividly for me. During an ice breaking round with a group of frontline associates, I asked them a very simple question: what are your hobbies? What are you passionate about? The answers came quickly: playing the guitar, bodybuilding, sports. Their face lit up as they spoke. Then I asked a follow up: so, how are you pursuing these passions today? And that's when the room went silent. They admitted they could not. The unpredictable schedules, the long working hours, it left them with no energy. Music, sports, learning, all had quietly slipped away. For them, hospitality wasn't just a job, it was consuming their entire identity. I still remember the silence in the room. It was heavy. And that moment was a wake up call for me. Hospitality is notorious for long working hours. Some of it is the nature of the business, but much of it is legacy of poor practices and lack of accountability. When I proposed measuring and paying overtime fairly, the response was disbelief, almost fear. I was told it was impractical. that wage costs would spiral, that it would lead to industrial unrest. Fear psychosis took over. But we persisted. We engaged with managers and employees. We piloted systems in select hotels. We tested the software. We made adjustments. The goal wasn't perfection. We were not chasing for perfection. It was progress. Over time, the system adjusted to this new way of working. And despite the resistance, we proved it could be done. So Cian Wong, in her research paper, the the curve linear relationship between dissatisfaction with the status quo and innovative behavior, shares findings that struck me deeply. She notes that moderate dissatisfaction can be a catalyst for innovation. When your problems are visible, when dissatisfaction is encouraged in a constructive way, people propose change and act. But for this to happen, leaders must provide job security and psychological safety. So, when we are trying to change the status quo and you're challenging the system, it also means that you're putting pressure on people. And when we're doing the same, a lot of times it's equally important to let the leaders know that there is a job safety for them. When there is no job safety, the fear makes sure that people actually feel more demotivated. Only then people will act boldly when they feel there is a security. On the other hand, if you do too much of dissatisfaction without support, it's harmful. It demotivates, it overwhelms, it pushes employees into defensive states where they stop innovating or even withdraw completely. The art of leadership is knowing when discomfort fuels growth and when it becomes destructive. Across the world, throughout history, it has been curiosity and the courage to challenge the status quo that has led to imagination and innovation. The Wright brothers defied the disbelief that humans couldn't fly. Steve Jobs insisted that technology should be both functional and beautiful. Leaders in every age have challenged cultural and social norms to push society forward. Every leap came from someone saying, the way we have always done is not enough. So, as someone who challenges the status quo consistently, I often notice stakeholders and the teams start off skeptical. It's natural. A lot of times, actually become cynical. Their apprehensions are natural. They don't see the full picture or they lack the conviction. So, my approach has been simple: follow up with a strong foundation of facts and research. So, when we went back to the introduction of overtime, we actually did a very thorough study of facts, research presented to the various relevant stakeholders. We presented a plan that addresses every stakeholder's query logically. That's very, very important. We listened with empathy and not just logic, because the stakeholders were worried. There's a lot of scarcity and the fact that, oh, this is something which has not been done, what will happen? So we listened with empathy, understood their fear, understood their challenges, assured them that we will walk along with them. And then we persisted with the idea. So the most of the time, once you do all these steps, people aligned, right? Sometimes reluctantly, and sometimes not at all. That's natural. The important part is to let the project and the early results speak for themselves. That's why early wins matter. When people see the first signs of success, happier employees, smoother operations, better guest experiences, they start to believe. Most of the time, the majority will eventually align, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes not at all. When we did this over time, the first fear among people was that it's going to take the costs up, the payroll costs will go up. Over the last 3 years, our data indicates that it's 0.1% of the total revenue generated in one of the hotels, right? And the other worry is that, oh, what will happen? Is it going to affect us really? Over the last 2 years, one of my largest, biggest property in India, their attrition in 2023 was 55%. To today, it is at 19%. That's the results, right? But when we were introducing this in this property, people were panicking, right? People were not sure. People said, how can we do it? This is an industry where people can suddenly decide to spend 2 more hours party. It's not practical, it's impossible, it's difficult to follow these regulations. So it's very, very important as you are taking them through the process. You sometimes need to let your instincts and let them trust you for the process. So that's a very important aspect of it, right? The important point is to let the project and early results speak for themselves. That's why early wins matter. And belief, my friends, is contagious. Now let me step back. This is not just about hospitality, because I'm relating to it because it's the industry where I come from. It's about every industry, healthcare, education. Many sectors struggle with the same tension. We adopt new tools, new systems, new gadgets, but when it comes to culture, when it comes to people practices, we cling to the old ways. The danger of the status quo is not that it feels wrong, it's that it feels comfortable. And comfort is a enemy of growth. So what does it mean for leaders? It means our job is not just to manage the present, but to prepare for the future. It means we cannot reward obedience to old systems. We must reward curiosity. It means we must get comfortable with discomfort, because leadership today is less about having all the answers and more about creating environments where people feel safe to ask better questions. So, the question I leave you with this is this: where in your world are you clinging to the status quo? Is it in your workplace or in your personal life? Is it in your leadership style or in the way you handle your relations? Because history shows us one thing very clearly: status quo is the slowest form of failure, and the courage to challenge it is the fastest way to progress. Thank you.